Ooh, I should have that open.
Oh, we're live.
Oh, yeah, it happened. It worked.
Kinda.
You ever notice how it's always the thing that people do?
You know what?
They
Now I
always-
need to go into studio mode because you made me have scenes.
That was your fault,
Yeah,
technically.
it's true.
Although you could just get the other one ready.
I got it ready, and then I could just click the transition. It's gonna look so fancy. Oh my
That is gonna be
gosh!
fancy. It's gonna be so
Oh my
fancy.
gosh!
Earlier, for people
Welcome
who were
everyone.
joining,
Welcome.
he said I wouldn't do this. Like I don't need two different scenes. I don't need the studio.
And then I do.
And then
Dang
you made it. It wasn't my fault that you made
What
it.
are we doing talking about Windows 11, Michael? Why did you bring this up as a topic? Why did you say I had to cover Windows 11? So frustrating. You're such a
At
Windows
no
lover.
point would anybody believe you.
We're going to start here in a minute. We're going to give some folks a chance to join in, but I hope you're having a good Thursday. It's Thursday, right?
Live chat. It is Thursday, yes.
Oh my gosh, my power's flickering. Thank goodness I have those battery backups.
That is a valuable thing to have.
It is valuable, yeah, in moments like this.
I got my chat up on the phone.
Nice. I mean, no one can see what you just held up because we haven't switched over yet. We're still...
Oh, right. That's just an image.
Man, come on, bro.
I forgot that was an image.
I love it.
Maybe it shouldn't be an image. Maybe we should, like, whatnot and such. I don't know.
Let's put the link out to some people.
Hey, Casey,
let's
what's
put
up?
the link out.
We should. You guys send me that link, and then I'll.
All right,
I'll spread
you do
it.
that part.
I'll spread it, fam.
Please don't.
All right, I'll send it to the squad.
We're gonna start here in a minute. We'll switch over and we'll show you. Michael will show you his Windows 11 desktop, and
this is not my computer. Let's just pointing out he's streaming, not me. It's his idea to stream this.
I don't know what you're talking about. We'll get started here in just a moment. Be patient. Who's excited about Windows 11 news? I expect some good community like discussion in here too. Some passionate discussion about the new Windows 11.
What?
Oh, we're Linux people. That's right.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused by
Hey,
your
Jill's in here. Oh, she caught us. She caught us using Windows 11, Michael.
Someone put in the chat. It says "Seize Windows, close window."
Right.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm gonna tweet it.
Alex said, "I thought I was the Windows dude of the group." We're just gonna cover what has gone on with the big announcement. Like, I thought it would be fun to have Linux folks take a look at the Windows 11 completely biased. I mean, objectively. And what we saw. We're such big fans.
Speak for yourself, bud.
Grayson's here. You're a huge fan of Aeroglass? Yeah. When is the public beta? I think the beta's out now. Well, somehow people already have it.
It's leaked, and you also can get banned if you do it the wrong way or whatever.
Oh, so I shouldn't show my Windows 11 desktop?
Yeah, good thing you
darn.
Tweeted on the tweeters.
You sent me 5 LBC in Odyssey? That's freaking awesome.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
I'm sharing it out on the places.
We'll get started here in 1 second. We'll switch the screens up. We're just getting the word out, get a couple more people in here. This is out of nowhere. This was like planned 30 minutes ago. So I was just like, hey, it'd be interesting to get the take of a couple of Linux geeks on the Windows 11. Look at what they're doing in here. See what they're doing right. We wouldn't cover this in Destination Linux. So this is the only place you're going to hear our opinion on Windows 11.
Right?
Yeah.
This week's episode of Destination Linux, Windows. or not.
I want to see how they customize the Plasma desktop. See, I knew the commentary was going to be fire with the community on this one.
For
Like, it's
sure.
going to be so good. I'm more excited about your all's commentary in the comments than I am about doing this show. Like, because you guys are going to bring the fire. I know it. All right. Are we ready? You're muted now, Michael. Windows 11 changed the mute thing. I know it's confusing for you, but it's probably in the middle panel.
For the account I don't have.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm going to switch it so you can stop seeing the screenshot. Here we go. Look at this transition cut, Michael. You can't do stuff like this on Destination Linux. Are you ready to see the cut transition? I spent hours working on this. There we go. You're muted.
My bad. I'm so happy that you were able to successfully create the default fade that comes with the program. Good job.
Man, did you see how smooth it was though?
It was smooth. I mean, it was like that. The fade went through like 300 milliseconds of transitioning. I mean, good job. Good job.
I didn't change anything. I leave everything default always. No matter what it is.
Including the welcome screens.
Yeah. All right, let me get this chat here. I've got to be able to read the chat. Garuda does rock, man. I love Garuda Linux. It's so good. It's so good. All right, Michael, you ready? Anybody else who's not here, they're just going to miss out. That's all it is. They're just going to miss out. You never know when me and Michael are going to go live. You should just always have our channels up, waiting in anticipation for it. The possibility. I wouldn't do that either. It's bad advice.
We don't always have it streaming live, so having a live stream.
Maybe we should do that though. 24 hours. We just leave our cameras on anytime we walk in the room.
That would never backfire.
Yeah.
That would never, ever backfire.
I like Jill. It's nice to see Windows 11 enveloped by Garuda. Yeah, Garuda's keeping Windows 11 in a container right now. It's containerized to keep it from going crazy.
Right.
All right, OpenBSD. That's awesome. How you like an OpenBSD? All right, Michael, you ready? We got things to do.
I do.
All right. Windows 11. So I don't know about you, Michael, but I watched the whole event in anticipation of certain things. I really did. Like, I'm not even joking. I watched the whole event, and I had some... I
can tell you that I watched a total of 0 seconds.
Well, I'm going to show you what they're going to... We're on Microsoft's website themselves. This is the once in 10 years that I go here. And we're going to see what they talked about. Because I feel like there was some good things, but they made a huge miss during the whole presentation. And we'll get into that in a second. So I want to introduce you, Michael, to Windows 11. That's the first thing. Can you see that?
I can see it. I did see a video about the design methodology they used, and it's clean. Hilarious. It was already clean. Like, the previous version was clean too. Like, what's the difference?
This is cleaner. And I like how they look. I'm going to give them the good. I'm going to be non-biased, unlike you, Michael. You know, I'm going to tell the truth here. I'm not biased.
It's just awful.
This looks. It's just awful.
Okay, it's not awful.
You are the designer, because as you all know who watch Destination Linux, I leave everything default in any distribution I go into. So Michael definitely has authority here. But to me, I liked that they squished everything together in the middle. Here's why. Because they were demoing in the announcement in the conference that if you move this to tablet mode, it stays exactly the same. There's not like some special tablet mode like Windows 8 or whatever had where it puts big blocks in place or anything. But because it's all in the middle with the tablet, you know, that's kind of a comfortable spot, and they're nice and spaced out, so you could click on them if you have a touch screen. Like, it looks clean-ish, right?
I mean, okay, let me ask you something. If this was on a touchscreen and it was on the left side like it normally was, how would this change in any way whatsoever?
Okay, so if it's on the left side, it's a good question. I have to go like this. But if it's in the middle, see? That's saved. Did you see how long? Okay.
Oh yeah, because you took
Yeah.
longer to move your finger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I mean,
Totally.
if you look at my panel here with Garuda, right? Like, it's kind of the same concept. We've had this in Linux forever,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
you could customize your dock. You could put anything anywhere you
Sure.
wanted it. You could have multiple docks and panels. This is really like Windows going, look, we did something new that Linux has had for, well, ever. The ability to do.
I guess so. I mean, it is basically moving the stuff to the middle for like a dock style, and I can see that as a factor. However, for me, the empty space on the left just seems odd that it's there.
It's bugging you. You want like
Well,
my face, a little icon on my face or something there?
absolutely, for sure. We need to put your DasGeek brain face on the thing right there, and it'd be perfect. So, like the thing on the right side, I always have this problem. What I do is that I have my layout. If there's ever like an empty space, it just feels off for some reason. And because they kept the system tray where it normally was, that what makes it feel off to me. Not necessarily because I really care. It's just like it. There was this video about their design. They said something about like, we do things with a purpose, but they never actually explained what the purpose was. They just said that there is a purpose, and I don't see a purpose. It's just centering it, and there's no real value in doing.
So it looks like a lot of people agreeing with you that they don't like that empty space in the chat. And look, you know way more about this design stuff than me, so we'll go with it that it's different. Okay, let's look at their menu here. When you pop up a menu in Windows 10, you're inundated with garbage advertising for the first install, right? You've got things like games and solitaire, and they pre-installed Netflix, and I don't remember all of them, but like there's a lot of stuff like Facebook,
Candy Crush,
all of that nonsense is because you don't control your PC when you're in Windows. Of course, they don't show that here, but I'm assuming when people go to install this, we'll still have that junk invading our first install, but they show just like their own apps here. So all I can do is assume that they're not going to inundate us with that crap, because I don't know otherwise until I see the actual install. But what do you think about this recommended section? Like if you had some documents open and things, it kind of recommends them. It's more clean than the tiled Windows 10 menu, I think, before. I like this better than the Windows 10 menu. Let me put it that way.
It does seem more simplistic and better overall in that sense, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the recommended section is odd because it's like it's kind of like a recent favorites or recent places type of menu. And while that's all right, ultimately, I'm not really a fan because it just seems to be wasting a lot of space that's not necessary.
I mean, in Garuda, like we have menus, very clean.
Those are categories, but like for example, your favorites.
I can put favorites, whatever I want here.
Yeah, that's the pin section, so I get that part. The part about that.
What happened?
You clicked into a video.
Oh, let's get rid of that. All right, there we go.
So it's fine overall. I don't really hate it or nothing. Like,
yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, there's nothing like.
I do like their wallpaper, man. I like their color scheme. I like their wallpaper. I think it looks clean. It makes it look cleaner.
I will say that the wallpaper is nice looking. And I do also like the rounded corners.
This one cracked me up because I kept thinking about Pop! OS here, because they kept saying stuff like, we're the first ones to ever give you the ability to do more than just snap side by side. And then I'm like, this literally looks like, what do they call it in Pop! OS? The pop tile or tile popper tile popping.
If you hadn't asked me that, I would have
tile popping. Someone in chat knows.
Shell.
Pop shell. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like it looks just like that. And in fact, Budgie had a tool as well that was like this.
Shuffler.
Yeah. Yep. Which I thought was Ubuntu Budgie did a great job on Shuffler. It looked just like this. So they said they're the first OS to offer this. Come on, Windows. Come on, bros.
They're the first OS compared between them and Mac. That's it.
Yeah.
Like it's also when they said, like, I'm pretty sure they said the first OS to have virtual desktops or whatever when they introduced that. Like, no, you're not. Not even
like
close.
These things up here we've had forever. I could switch desktops anytime I want. So they did take a lot of design cues, it seems like, from Linux. Now, I can't say that they actually looked at Linux and said, I'm going to do that, but there's a lot of design cues. It seems like things that we've had in Linux that have made it a faster, better, snappier experience that they have borrowed here, at the very least.
There was an interesting statement I saw that someone said that it looked like GNOME 40 combined with Plasma, and it kind of does look like that. Like their layout of the desktop feels like a combination of the two.
Yeah.
Well, mostly it's because the GNOME 40 has the centered menu thing, and then the style of the bright theme is kind of like how Plasma's default is, and if you combine the two, you basically have this, which is interesting.
Is this they bring up a good point. Alex in the chat says the only reason they called it Windows 11 is because the media told them to call it Windows 11. It's supposed to be called Sun Valley Update. I don't know if that's true or not, but I will say that in a lot of ways, this doesn't seem like a complete. There was nothing here in this Windows 11 announcement that said, oh, yeah, this is the next generation of operating system. You could have done all this to an update in Windows 10. I mean, it doesn't feel like there's that much under the hood here. I mean, you get this guy and these people become your friends the second you install it. But outside of that, I don't feel like they're giving me a whole lot. I get 3 new friends.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not that much different, but also remember when they changed the UI any other time, people lost their minds. So they're probably avoiding changing the UI now because they don't want to be yelled at, or yelled at more so than they normally get.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why the UI is only changed in the minimal sense that they did it was to avoid the massive backlash. They're still going to get backlash because it's not that much of a UI. And like the only video I saw was the whole design video where they were explaining like what's different in the visuals and whatnot.
You did watch a video.
I did not watch
live.
No, well, that's
you got caught red-handed.
No. I only watched it
Windows
because you said, "Hey, do you want to talk about Windows 11?" And I'm like, "Well, you'll do the design stuff." Like, well, I guess I got to look at the design then. So but that video is hilarious because it's a 4-minute long video and like half of it is just pretentious gibberish. And it made me laugh because it looked like they were trying to out pretentious Mac, and they were successful in being super pretentious. There was a part where they said something about like, what if you have a natural light in your room and we wanted to make it so that when your desktop is closer to that light source, that it makes it a little bit brighter. What does that even mean? Like that
is that like the
nonsense.
Apple Mac OS saying we use the white so that you don't get distracted border that everybody hated, you know?
I mean, I guess. Yeah, I guess. It's kind of like the whole the iMac thing. But it's interesting because a lot of the stuff they said that they changed the design for really didn't matter. Like the only thing that actually looks decent is the rounded corners. And that's just because rounded corners, yeah, they just look good in general.
But isn't that a style thing that changes every couple of years? Like then we'll go back to square and be like, wow, that looks new, and then we'll go back to rounded and go, wow, that looks, because we've done this a little bit, right?
I mean, probably the whole idea of design, like design changes itself all the time, and what was cool one year is different another year, and then back and forth, and then when something becomes retro at some point, like all kinds of stuff.
All right, so I found something that destroys KDE. If you all don't know, Michael is a huge fan of KDE. Yes. And he will fight to the death that it's the greatest desktop environment in the world. But
I will not do that.
Can KDE do widgets, Michael?
Yes, it can.
Oh, darn. Never mind. So one of the big features they released are widgets. So you can you can install widgets here if you want to. And where do I get to the widgets here, Michael? Oh, add widgets. And here's a whole panel of them here. Man, we've had this for, I don't know, since I've been in Linux. KDE's had widgets.
Yep. Actually, you could. The cool thing about KDE's widget system is that every single element on your panel is a widget. Yeah. So anything you can put on the desktop in the panels can be put in the desktop and vice versa.
But so this is a nice looking widget. I like how it slides out. I like how it has that transparency. It's very Mac-like to me. If you've played with iOS at all and kind of their overview screen, forget what they call it, but it looks very similar to this. Yeah,
I think. Yeah, it looks good. I do think that part looks good. I don't like the bright panel. I've never liked a bright panel. I think that it.
What do you mean bright panel? Like
the very bottom of the taskbar, Oh,
okay.
The taskbar is bright now. I don't like that. Everything else being bright is okay. It's just I don't like my taskbar yelling at me at all times. So I think that they're trying to copy the Mac brightness, which is kind of funny considering Mac just added dark mode to their system.
Yeah. So this one actually was a big announcement. This is where I know not everybody listens to Destination Linux. We get this feedback all the time.
How dare you?
You guys talk about gaming, and not all of us are into gaming in that thing, but it's such a big market. I've given the statistics before. It's bigger than music and movies combined. It's something where most of the most people are now playing games of some sort or getting into gaming. It's just a mass industry. One of the biggest industries out there for entertainment. And Xbox and Microsoft Windows have kind of combined, because when the new Xbox launched, they talk about the fact that there's going to be no more exclusives to Xbox. And what they meant by that was that any game you can play on Xbox, you're going to be able to play in Windows. Right. And what they announced here is they were talking about their Game Pass. Now, why this is a big deal, in my opinion, is this is the big differentiator between Mac OS and Windows 11. It's not a big differentiator between Linux anymore. It's getting smaller. Let me put it that way. But Mac OS, there's barely any games you can play. I mean, I had Mac OS. You could see it on the videos on my channel. I played with it for over 30 days. There's just not a lot of gaming you can do on a Mac. But here in Windows, you can do a lot of gaming. In Linux, of course, now you can do a lot of gaming. But them looking and selling this subscription, of course, they have HDR enabled by default. They talked about it. It's not mentioned here, but that was one of the things they talked about in the videos. And their Game Pass with over 100 games you could play for one subscription fee, I think is a big differentiator between them and Mac OS, and something that they spent some time really talking about gaming, because they know that's a big difference between if you're going to be in the Mac ecosystem or Windows.
Yeah. And also gaming is very important to all sorts of stuff. Like, a lot of people who are not fans of gaming are not aware of how important it is, because it's not just about, liking video games. It's not just about, wanting to play games. The importance of gaming is way beyond that, because technology is tested to its ultimate bounds with gaming. Like, everything is pushed as far as it can possibly go in the gaming realm, more so than most other types of computing, because they want to get it as the best quality they can, the best performance they can, the most efficient they can. And gaming as a basis for value of this operating system is pushing an innovation and all that stuff. So gaming is not only important in general for the market share in the community that wants the gaming, it's also important just to push the envelope.
Well, even for a lot of the technologies going to video cards, other things get utilized for rendering, video creation, all that stuff. So creators and other things get to benefit from that work as well. They talk about a PC for each of us. A new Windows is available in the widest range. So they've got a bunch of partners basically for their new equipment. It looks like that's what they're trying to say there. Someone was asking in the chat what the desktop environment this is. So I'm using Garuda Linux, which is a Arch-based Linux, and this is the KDE desktop. For those who want to know.
The best desktop.
Yeah, Garuda's gorgeous. I did install Garuda XFCE on my other machine, man. The Garuda XFCE is pretty awesome, too. I love my XFCE. It's really good out of the box.
I mean, you changed the window borders of your Plasma to look like XFCE, it looks like.
Shut up. All right, so find the right PC for you. Of course, they talk about everything connected into OneDrive, right? They want that Office 365 subscription cost. I've heard that they're not going to charge for Windows 11, that it's going to be just like the Windows 8 to Windows 10 thing, that if you already have a license, when I say don't charge, I mean to upgrade to it. You've already paid a license fee. The moment you buy a brand new computer they're trying to get you to buy here, you're going to pay a license fee for that inside of the hardware costs that you're paying. Or if you're building your own machine, you're going to have to buy a license like you do today. However, if you already have Windows 10, you'll be able to upgrade to Windows 11 for free. And it says that here, I see now. Okay. And the one thing, though, is that they have a system compatibility checker, because apparently, Michael, not all the hardware is going to actually be able to run Windows 11.
Right.
And so
there's some limits to
that could be a problem.
It requires UEFI, Secure Boot, and something else, TDM2, I think. So it requires all of these, TPM2. So it requires, if your hardware does not have support for all three of those things, you can't run Windows 11. which roughly range-wise about 6 years or like 6-7 years or older hardware might not have all of those things.
So Linux City is saying you have to enable that TPM in BIOS, which is what you were saying, right?
Right.
That's interesting.
It also means like anybody who has hardware where they disable secure boot wouldn't be able to use this in like a dual boot system or whatever or anything like that. So there are some Linux distributions that require secure boot being turned off. And if you wanted to dual boot, you really couldn't do that at that point. So it is an interesting, but also I think the most interesting piece here is that because they have to create this PC health checker thing, it's basically an app to tell you if your hardware can support Windows 11 or not. So they're creating another example of upgrade, like obsolescence of hardware. Like it's the hardware necessarily. It's only
they're going to
6 years
support
old,
Windows
right?
10 to 2025, I think.
Yes.
So
2025.
Yeah. So that you've got some leg room there.
Sure, but I think it's in the sense of like people who want to upgrade will not be able to. A lot of people. So it feels to me like they're trying to push more hardware being purchased.
All right, so I'm going to talk about real quick because Michael did me a huge favor to even come on here with me last minute because I was like, hey, you want to do a Windows 11 stream? He's like, what? Okay, sure. So I appreciate you coming over and doing it because it's much more interesting to discuss with other people. But the Windows 11, what's the difference? This part cracked me up. Windows 11 has all the power and security of Windows 10. Like, that sentence is really funny. But the thing I want to point out most is that that's where I feel like Microsoft completely bombed. Whether you believe in Apple's more privacy marketing campaign or not, the reality is that they've spent millions getting that message out there because they know finally people are starting to wake up and understand the importance of privacy and security. It's having real implications on people's lives, ability to get credits. All kinds of things are happening related to people's privacy and security, and Apple is capitalizing on that. Windows 11 could have come out and said, hey, we're going to have the most private version of Windows ever. We're going to focus on the security. It's going to be locked down. But they didn't even mention it in the entire video that I watched. They didn't mention privacy and security one time in that whole thing, which means instead of taking this opportunity to actually start fixing some of the reasons why a lot of people leave Microsoft Windows to begin with, which is all the metadata and privacy grabbing nonsense in the background, trying to fix that or even lie about it, they decided not to even talk about it. And to me, that was that was one of the biggest mistakes I've seen Microsoft make in a long time.
Yes. I agree with that. I think the security aspect that they're listing here is because security and privacy are very different. So they would never dare put privacy there because that would eliminate their telemetry data farming that they have. So the security aspect of Windows, them saying it has all the power and security of Windows 10 is hilarious because that implies that Windows 10 has power and security. So
I mean, I don't hate Windows 10. The thing I hate about Windows 10 is the privacy and security. So for those who haven't installed it in a while, when you go through an install in Windows 10, it's going to ask you, do you want to turn off these privacy settings? And then you'll set them off. You can turn them all off. So I give them props there. But then if you go to privacy and security in the actual operating system, once you've installed it, you're going to find a whole bunch of new ones that weren't in that initial installation screen that you can turn off. And then a lot of people report when they do an update that all those things turn back on. And it's just, it's constant nonsense. It's the pre-installing apps in your operating system that you're paying for. It's the control that they have, the metadata grabbing, the wanting to sync everything to OneDrive, I think is scary, especially from a company that doesn't even mention privacy and security when their biggest competitor, which easily is macOS, is spending all their time in their conferences practically talking about privacy and security.
But Ryan, what if I have nothing to hide?
Well, don't worry about it then, Michael, because you must be the perfect citizen.
Yeah, no one has secrets.
So I think they beat macOS on gaming. You know, they're still slightly have more options than Linux on gaming, but it's not like Linux isn't capable of it. So it's more
that's
just
changing every day, though. Like
changing every day.
Single day. There's like you go back a few years, there was you know, a dozen games on Linux. Now we have thousands of games on Linux. So it's very interesting. I think it's only a matter of time.
The hardware partners, the tablets, the redesign, it's interesting. They're taking a lot of work. Now, there was another thing that was really big that they mentioned, and that's the Android app integration. I think they said they were using the Amazon Android store. Can someone validate on the side if you saw that? I think it was the Amazon Android side, but either way, you're going to be able to install Android apps, it sounds like, in Windows, which means now, Michael, you got WSLG, so you've got GUI Linux applications, and you have all of the Android applications. So it's almost like they're a vacuum cleaner of operating systems, and they just suck them all up in there and be like, well, whatever you want to use, man, just don't leave that Windows boot, please.
We're not that useful, but you can use all the other stuff that is more useful than us.
Yeah.
So it is, honestly, I do think that the idea that as a business decision, it was a very smart decision.
Smart.
Because
absolutely.
They did need to do something when they realized that Windows Phone is garbage and they're going to get rid of it. They had to do some kind of pivot, right? And when they pivoted to Android, it was a matter of time before they had Android apps on Windows. So it makes sense that they're doing this. And I do think that it is a good play. And I also think that it should hopefully invigorate some desire and aspirations from the Linux community to put our, you know, collective force behind Anbox, because that would be a very powerful thing to have.
Explain Anbox to people who don't understand it.
Well, Anbox is a project to be able to run Android apps on the Linux desktop. So it's created as a project that is, you know, it's one of those projects that someone just wanted to build and they make it work, but not everything works in it because it has a very small team. I think it's maybe one person at this point, but it was a very small team for a long time. And but there is a lot of work being done with it, thanks to like the Ubuntu Touch people working with it and that sort of thing. But in terms of like the overall goal of Anbox, I think we're very far from that, being able to run any Android app on Linux. But I think that as a show of Windows doing this, Microsoft realizing that that's a value, maybe the Linux community would realize that's a value and would put some more effort into making that possible. Because I do think, while I think Android is a terrible operating system and a joke to say that it is a Linux system because it doesn't have any of the values and philosophy,
privacy and security and all that stuff that we would hold the desktop to.
Yeah, in terms of philosophy-wise, he sees the exact opposite. But at the same time, it's still touted as being a Linux-based thing and whatever, and it technically is and all that. But the main thing is that with Anbox support on Linux, it would eliminate a lot of the headaches of some apps not being available, because if there's an Android app version, that may be enough in certain people's cases, and that would be great to see. So yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I think that's a good point. I think it was a smart move on their part, but I'll tell you the smartest move they made. The dumbest move they made was not talking about privacy and security. I mean, it's unbelievably dumb, Microsoft. Like, so bad. But the smartest move they made is talking about devs and the fact that they can have their store, their subscriptions. They mentioned Adobe specifically, games, whatever you want, and they're going to take zero profit out of it in their marketplace. So they take no cut if you put your app in their store.
Temporary amount of time, or did they say in general?
They did not say temporary.
Ah,
that was the biggest news that I've seen come out of this. Now, the chat can keep me honest for any of you guys who have watched it live, but that was one of the things that I just thought, man, Mac OS, Apple right now is in a lot of controversy related to the way that they are kind of closed gardening their app stores and everything else and taking huge chunks of the profit. They won't allow app stores on there to bypass their ability to take profit. And Windows is coming in here like, hey, if you want to develop on Windows, we're not going to take any of your profit either. By the way, Michael, on Linux, how much profit does like Ubuntu and Fedora and all of them take when you put your app in the store?
Oh, zero.
Zero. So we've kind of had that for a while in the Linux world, but I guess
we have very good market sharing of the process.
Wait, what about if you create it in a Snap or Flatpak? Surely they charge you for the build services of all that. How much is that?
Okay, well, you carry the 0%. Yeah,
0%.
They take 0%. Yeah.
So I know this is exciting to non-Linux users, but to us Linux users, it's like, yeah, okay. We've been able to do that forever. But
Yeah.
it was a slap in the face to Apple. I think a pretty hard one. It was a pretty smart move on their part. And it's not like Microsoft needs the money from it anyways. And getting the apps over here, I think is pretty important for them right now.
Yeah. It's a smart idea in terms of like business decision again. Like kind of the only things that I thought were good are the Android app support and the developers having, to be able to not get any percentage taken away. But I think that's already I think that's the reason why they did that is not because they wanted, I mean, it is because they wanted to battle Apple in the sense of like the market, or marketability and brandability and that kind of thing. But I think it's mostly because if they hadn't done that, there would be a massive uproar. Because otherwise, like if you just get a Windows app, Microsoft's not going to get anything from that if you just download it from someone's website and get the exe or whatever. So they really didn't have a choice but to do this. If
Yeah.
they were to take a percentage, no one would use it because they could just download the app as they already would in the first place.
So you sent an article to me from OMG Ubuntu about could Windows 11 strict requirements benefit Linux? What's the summary of this idea here?
It's a very interesting article based on the announcement for Windows 11 because they were talking about the restrictions of the hardware. And they're basically saying, Joey says that it's about an opportunity that we could use this as a way to promote Linux in general to the users who have hardware that is not supported by Windows 11, and people are going to be trying to convince them that they can't use this hardware anymore because it's obsolete. In the same way that Mac says things are obsolete, even though they still work just fine.
Well, he mentions the Microsoft Surface Book 2. That's not that old of a machine. That's a nice little laptop.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be able to run Windows 11. So apparently they really are beefing up the requirements here to take out a lot of the old hardware, which is a shame.
Yeah. And there's a lot of cases where the hardware just won't run Windows 11, and they would, the way to keep those going would be Linux in that sense, of course. But I think it is an interesting perspective because the fact that they increased the requirements so high, like it's kind of shocking that they made it that restrictive. But I think the reason they did it is because of the whole secure boot UEFI belief that they have to say that that's going to be.
But see, their system requirements seem really low. They've got 1 gigahertz or faster, 2 or more cores. That seems very reasonable. I mean, even my Raspberry Pi is that. 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes. I mean, it's still a massive operating system. It requires 64.
It's massive.
That blows my mind. When 64 gigabytes, you can not only install Linux, but have 50 gigabytes or more left of space to store.
It only takes about 8 gigs to have a running Linux system.
So it uses so much of your storage. It's insane.
Yeah, the minimum system requirements, when you look at just those pieces, they don't look like a lot. Like the 4 gigs is kind of like 8 gigs at this point is like a standard that you see, and you're kind of going, okay, that's good enough. But 4 gigs is still very minimal. However, the UEFI secure boot and the TPM combination, like having UEFI and secure boot is easier for old hardware. The TPM part being added to those, having all 3 as a requirement, that's what makes this very restrictive.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting, and I think that article that OMG Ubuntu posted was an interesting perspective. That I do think this is an opportunity for Linux to get some market share. However, how we do that would be another discussion for another time, because I think that would require a lot more, breakdown of how this would be functional.
So I've heard Deepin ripoff. I've heard KDE ripoff on the look. I've heard a lot of different things from chat and stuff. What are your thoughts? Is this a ripoff, or is this just kind of taking the current stuff and molding it all together into something?
I think it is kind of a ripoff, but I think it's a ripoff of different elements from different places. Because when people say that Windows takes from specific DEs, I mean, we know for a fact that they do, because they have introduced features that were exactly working as the way of other features in Linux had. And the same thing that they did for Mac. And you can also say that Mac did the same. So it's more of like people making concept of ideas and innovative ideas and then copying them. For example, like being able to search from the start menu was not a thing in Windows before it was a thing in Linux. So we had that for a long time, and then all of a sudden they added it in Windows. And you couldn't say that was a ripoff, because it's just taking a concept of an idea and implementing it. Because people don't own ideas; they own the code, but not the idea.
Yeah, there's a book out there, Steal Like an Artist, that kind of says, "Hey, go out there, look for the best ideas, and take them." Some ways, I wish Linux would do some of that, some more in certain cases. So I'm not mad at them for going and changing it. I think the changes look decent. Like I said, for me, I know a lot of people were hoping, hey, Windows is going to rebase in their next version on a Linux kernel, because Microsoft's done a lot of stuff with Linux lately. And that didn't happen. We got Windows 11 instead. We got no privacy and security discussion at all about what Windows 11 is going to do to change the reason why many people, frankly, leave it in the first place. But we did get gaming. We got Android apps. It's interesting. I have some really special things I can't wait to try on Windows 11. One is the USB rubber ducky that looks like a thumb drive but types like. And this other hacking device here is called a land turtle, and I can't wait to try it on Windows 11. And then I have, of course, the Wi-Fi pineapple, and I also have the Shark Jack. All of these will work great on Windows 11, I'm sure, to hack it. So I'm very excited for Windows 11 from that standpoint.
Yeah, I could totally see why that would be exciting, and I'm curious to see how it works out for you with those.
Yeah, Michael. Tux Digital, go check out his channel. You probably already know it. I mean, if you're here, you probably know Michael. Or Destination Linux podcast every Sunday. We're going to be live. This was like a pop-up, spur of the moment. Let's cover Windows for some reason on a Linux channel thing. But thank you all for jumping in, talking to us in the chat. Oh my gosh, there's EB in the chat, Michael.
English Bob.
We've made it now. We've got English Bob in here to give us the proper Britishisms.
Right.
We're just here flapjawing.
I think what people are trying to see is that they want to find out, is Windows 11 tickety boo? And no, it's not.
Not tickety boo. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us. Until next time, get out there and feel your